Hi, my name is Claire, and I'm 28 years old. If you had asked me a few years ago what my life would look like today, I would have said something simple. Just me and my girls, maybe a stable job, and the kind of peace I never had growing up. But life has a way of throwing you into storms you never imagined, especially when you think you're finally safe. I live in a small apartment in Portland, Oregon, with my 6-year-old twin daughters, Mia and Zoe. They're my whole world. Mia is the quieter one, curious, always drawing or building something out of cardboard boxes. Zoe, on the other hand, is all sparkle and energy, the kind of kid who laughs with her whole face. They're opposites, but together, they fill my world with more light than I ever thought possible. I've been a single mom since they were 2. Their father left when the pressure of parenthood became too much. It wasn't dramatic, just a slow erosion until he finally said he couldn't do it. Since then, it's been the 3 of us, and honestly, I thought I was doing okay. I work from home as a freelance graphic designer, juggling deadlines with playtime, and trying my best to build something stable for them. But my family background? That's a whole different story. My mother, Victoria, is the kind of woman who thinks appearances are everything. She hosts charity galas, keeps her home pristine like a magazine spread, and expects her children to fit neatly into her version of success. My entire childhood felt like a performance. The clothes, the posture, the test scores, everything had to be perfect. And then there's my younger brother, Matthew. He's the golden boy. Smart, handsome, obedient, everything I was never allowed to be. He followed the path our mother laid out for us. Business school, fraternity, and now, a corporate career. He's getting engaged to Sarah, a girl who looks like she was made for our mother's Instagram feed. Naturally, the whole family is preparing for a flawless engagement ceremony in just a few days. I've always been the outlier. I chose art school instead of finance. I married for love instead of pedigree. And when that marriage ended, my mother saw it not as a heartbreak, but as a personal embarrassment. Since then, she's offered help in the form of control, covering some of Mia and Zoe's school costs in exchange for my silence, my attendance at every family function, and my surrender of independence. Most days, I let it slide. For my girls, I told myself it was worth the cold comments and controlling remarks just so Mia and Zoe could have a better future. But I didn't realize that future was about to be shaken in ways I could never have imagined. Because the nightmare started not with a scream, or a fall, or a warning. It started with a fever. It began so subtly, I almost brushed it off. Mia had a low-grade fever one evening and looked a little pale. I gave her children's Tylenol, thinking it was just a passing cold. The next day, Zoe complained of leg pain, and when I touched her forehead, she too had a fever. I kept both girls home from school, made chicken soup, and let them rest on the couch under their favorite dinosaur blanket. But over the next few days, things got worse, much worse. The fevers spiked. Their energy plummeted. Zoe, my little spark of sunshine, barely spoke. Mia cried quietly when her joints ached. Then I noticed small bruises on Zoe's arms and legs. I knew those weren't from playing around. My chest tightened. Something wasn't right. I took them to urgent care. The nurse practitioner ran a quick test and frowned. "You should take them to the hospital immediately," she said. "This could be something more serious." My heart sank. We arrived at the children's hospital within the hour. The emergency room was bright and busy, but everything felt like a blur. Nurses took their vitals. A doctor asked me a series of questions. Then they drew blood, vials and vials of it, while the girls whimpered, holding my hands tightly. I tried to stay calm, smiling for them even when my stomach was in knots. "You're so brave," I whispered over and over, more for myself than for them. An hour later, a pediatric oncologist entered the room. Her name was Dr. Bennett, and her calm voice made my skin crawl with fear. "Miss Claire," she said gently, "we're seeing some abnormal cells in your daughter's blood work. We're going to need to admit both of them for further testing." I stared at her. "What does that mean?" "We suspect something more serious, possibly leukemia, but we won't know for sure until we run full panels and a bone marrow biopsy." "Leukemia?" The word hung in the air like a scream no one dared to voice. I nodded, numb, and signed the admission papers with shaking hands. Within minutes, we were moved to the pediatric oncology unit, a sterile hallway filled with soft beeping machines, coloring books, and quiet tears behind closed doors. Mia and Zoe were placed in a shared room. They were given IVs, fluids, and gentle sedation for testing. I sat between their beds, gripping both their small hands as Dr. Bennett explained the next steps. They'll start chemotherapy immediately if the diagnosis is confirmed. The earlier we begin, the better their chances. I nodded again, not trusting my voice. Everything inside me felt like it was shattering. I had come to this hospital hoping to treat a fever, and instead, I was walking into war. A battle I hadn't prepared for. A war I had no idea how to fight. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew I couldn't do this while being pulled by my mother's chains. Within 24 hours, it was confirmed. Both Mia and Zoe had acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Hearing the diagnosis spoken out loud felt like having the ground torn out from under me. I sat motionless in a plastic hospital chair while Dr. Bennett explained treatment plans, survival rates, and side effects. Words like chemotherapy, immunosuppression, and central line insertion blurred into a storm of fear inside my head. The girls were started on treatment immediately. They were hooked up to IVs, their meals monitored, and their immune systems slowly dismantled by medication. Their once bright faces grew pale. Their hair began falling out by the second week. And though they were in pain, they kept looking for me, searching my face for safety. I stayed by their side, sleeping in the fold-out chair between their beds. I didn't leave the room except for bathroom breaks and quick showers in the parent room. The nurses, especially Rosa, a kind woman with a soothing voice, offered warm words and extra blankets. She told me, quietly one night, "You're doing everything right, Claire. I've seen a lot of parents come through here. You're one of the strong ones." But I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was unraveling slowly, while pretending to be whole. My best friend Kate came by with a tote full of necessities, clean clothes, snacks, toothpaste, and my laptop charger. She hugged me tightly, whispering, "Whatever you need, I'm here. Don't even think twice." I nodded, too exhausted to speak, but deeply grateful. It wasn't just the illness. It was the endless alarms, the constant monitoring, the sterile air that smelled like antiseptic and fear. I stopped checking the time. Days and nights blended into each other. The only thing that mattered was my daughter's lab numbers, white cell counts, fevers, platelet drops. They began calling the hospital our room. Zoe would whisper, "Mommy, when can we go home?" I'd smile and say, "Soon, baby. Very soon. You just have to get better first." Each night, I'd sit beside them and read softly from their favorite books. Mia loved stories about animals that survived storms. Zoe loved anything with glitter and princesses. I tried to give them both, hope and magic, even if mine was wearing thin. I knew I couldn't fall apart. Not yet. But even in those quiet hospital nights, I could feel something building, a collision I could no longer avoid. And it came the moment my phone lit up with a familiar name. Mom, Victoria. It was late, sometime after midnight, when my phone buzzed on the tray table beside me. I was half asleep, curled between Mia and Zoe's hospital beds, their 4 machines softly beeping in the background. I reached over, expecting a message from a nurse or Kate. But the screen flashed a name that sent a cold ripple through my spine. Mom. I stared at it, heart sinking. I already knew what this would be. Not concern, not love, but something else. Still, I stepped quietly into the hallway and answered. "Claire," Victoria said briskly, as if I'd kept her waiting. "I've been trying to reach you all day." I closed my eyes and took a breath. "I'm at the hospital, Mom, with the girls." Yes, she cut in. "I heard. The illness." She said it like a passing cold. "But Matthew's engagement is this weekend, and I need you here. We're hosting 60 guests. The florists are behind. Sarah's nervous. I want the table arrangements perfect, and I need your help." I was silent for a moment, stunned. Mom, did you hear what I just said? Both Mia and Zoe are in the hospital. They've been diagnosed with leukemia. They're on chemotherapy. I'm not leaving them. Not for anything. She sighed dramatically. Claire, children get sick. You said it yourself, they're receiving treatment. What are you going to do, sit there and watch them sleep? You being there every second isn't going to change anything. But your absence at this event, that's going to matter. I clenched the phone, my free hand curling into a fist. You can't be serious. This is exactly your problem, she snapped. You use crisis as an excuse. Just like during your divorce. Just like at Heather's, sorry Matthew's, graduation when you said you had the flu and couldn't come. You've always run from family responsibilities. I'm not running, I said, my voice low and trembling with restraint. I'm choosing my daughters. They are fighting for their lives.
She scoffed.
And what about your responsibilities to this family? To the people who've supported you? We've helped pay for the girls' school, contributed to your rent. And now when I need you for a single weekend, you're unavailable. There it was, the ultimatum. She didn't even try to hide it. Just silence on the other end, heavy and strategic. If you can't fulfill basic expectations, she added coolly, perhaps we should rethink the financial support we've provided. My heart pounded. Yes, her help had made some things possible. But at what cost? I looked through the small window into the hospital room. Mia, bald and pale, was sleeping with her stuffed bunny tucked under her arm. Zoe stirred slightly, wincing in pain even in her dreams. That was all the clarity I needed. I'm not coming, I said, steady and calm. Do what you need to do. But I will not leave my daughters. There was a long pause. Then she snapped. You're on your own then. Don't come crawling back when things fall apart. I didn't reply. I simply ended the call and blocked her number. I stood there for a moment in the empty hallway, heart racing, then let the silence wrap around me. For the first time, I had chosen myself. I had chosen them, Mia and Zoe, without compromise. And somehow, even in the middle of this nightmare, it felt like freedom. Less than an hour after I blocked my mother's number, everything went wrong. I was just settling back into the recliner between Mia and Zoe's beds, softly humming to Zoe, while stroking Mia's forehead. Both girls were asleep, the room dimly lit, only the quiet beeps of machines breaking the stillness. Then suddenly, the monitor beside Zoe's bed began to shriek. A sharp, high-pitched alarm. I froze. Nurses rushed in. One checked her vitals while another was already calling out stats. BP dropping, oxygen at 78, she's not stabilizing. Zoe's small body began to shake. Code blue, room 213. The words rang in my ears like thunder. Ma'am, a nurse said urgently, guiding me backward toward the door. Please wait in the hallway. We need room to work. I didn't argue. I couldn't. My legs barely moved. I stepped outside, pressing my back against the cold wall, watching helplessly through the glass as 5 people swarmed around my daughter. Dr. Bennett was among them, barking quiet but firm instructions. Tubes, machines, medications, they moved with terrifying speed and precision. And I just stood there empty, powerless. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, my mind reeling. This couldn't be happening.
Not now.
Not after everything. Not after I had just finally stood up for us. The sound of suction. The crackle of a defibrillator warming up. The nurse closed the curtain over the window. I broke. For the first time since this nightmare began, I sobbed, chest shaking, hands shaking, heart tearing apart. I wanted to scream, to bargain with God, to trade anything for Zoe's life. But I could do none of it. I could only wait. Hey. I looked up, disoriented. A woman was sitting across from me in the hallway chairs. Early 30s, dark circles under her eyes, holding a hospital coffee cup like a lifeline. My name's Brenda, she said quietly. My daughter's across the hall.
Severe asthma attack.
3rd time this year. I nodded, unable to speak. She leaned her head back against the wall and said, My parents think it's because I use cheap detergent. Haven't talked to them in 2 years. Despite everything, a bitter laugh escaped my lips. My mother just disowned me, I whispered, because I wouldn't leave my kids in the ICU to go help at my brother's engagement party. Brenda's eyebrows lifted. Wow. Yeah, I said, voice cracking. They're 6. They have cancer. She nodded slowly. Then you made the right choice. You already know that, right? I looked at her, tears still running down my face. Yes, I whispered. For the first time since the monitor screamed, I said something with certainty. Yes, I did. Just then, Dr. Bennett emerged, her face tired but composed. She's stable, she said gently. Zoe's oxygen levels dropped suddenly, but we were able to correct it. She's responding to the new meds. It was a close call, but she pulled through. I pressed my hand over my mouth, gasping with relief. Can I go in? I asked. Of course. She's sedated again, but stable.
Talk to her.
Let her hear your voice. I nodded, rushing back into the room. Mia was still asleep. Zoe lay still but peaceful now, her monitor calm again, her little chest rising and falling in rhythm. I sat between their beds and held their hands tightly. You're going to be okay, I whispered. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Not ever. In that moment I knew. I had lost my mother, but I was not alone. The next morning, I woke with my head resting on Mia's bed and my hand still wrapped gently around Zoe's. The rhythmic beeping of the monitors was somehow comforting now, a reminder that both my daughters were still with me, still fighting. I hadn't checked my phone all night. I didn't need to. The only people I cared to hear from were already in this room. Around 9 a.m., there was a soft knock on the door. I looked up, expecting Rosa or Dr. Bennett. But to my surprise, standing quietly in the doorway, holding a small bag and looking slightly unsure of himself, was my father, Edward.
Dad.
I whispered, startled. He stepped inside, glancing at the girls with concern etched deep into the lines on his face. I hope it's okay that I came. I didn't tell you, Mother. For a moment, I didn't move. Then I rushed to him and hugged him tightly, something we hadn't done in years. He held on, his hand trembling slightly as he patted my back. They look so small, he said, staring at Mia and Zoe. They are, I replied, swallowing hard. But they're strong. He nodded slowly, then pulled a worn children's book and a small stuffed unicorn from his bag. Mia's favorite, he said quietly. From her bed at my place. I figured maybe it would help. I took it, blinking back tears. Thank you. You remembered. He sat in the second chair beside me, watching the girls in silence. Then after a while, he spoke again. I know things have been hard between you and your mother. And between you and, well, all of us really. I stayed quiet, not trusting what would come out if I opened my mouth. Edward took a deep breath. Claire, I want you to know something. I'm leaving her. My head snapped toward him. What? I've filed the papers. I've moved into a small apartment a few blocks from here. Your mother doesn't know yet. But after what she said to you, after how she acted, it finally hit me. I've been quiet too long. I stared at him in disbelief. I let her treat you like a disappointment. I let her control the narrative. And I stayed silent because I thought it kept peace. But it didn't. It just let the damage spread deeper. I'm sorry. My voice cracked. Dad, you don't have to apologize for her. I'm not, he said, meeting my eyes. I'm apologizing for me. We sat in silence for a while after that. Then he pulled an envelope from his coat and handed it to me. It's not much, he said, but it's something to help with the girls' needs. I opened it, trust in their name, just in case Victoria tries anything. I opened it slowly. Inside was a signed trust document and a starting deposit amount that made my eyes widen. Dad, this is... Don't argue with me, he interrupted gently. It's theirs. It always should have been. The door opened and Nurse Rosa peeked in. She smiled warmly at Edward. Your papa seems like a good one, she said to me with a wink. I smiled back, truly, deeply, for the first time in weeks. Because in that moment, I realized something simple and powerful. I hadn't just lost a toxic connection. I'd regained someone who finally chose me. That evening, the girls were resting quietly, their vitals holding steady. Zoe's fever had broken, and Mia's appetite was starting to return. She even asked for apple slices, which nearly made me cry with joy. Dr. Bennett came in during evening rounds, holding her clipboard and a hopeful smile. "We've adjusted their medications," she said gently, "and their latest blood work is encouraging. Both girls are responding well to treatment, Zoe especially, after that scare yesterday." I nodded, blinking rapidly. "So, they're improving?" "Yes," she replied and then paused. "We're not out of the woods yet, but the direction we're going, it's the one we want." I sat back in the chair, my whole body sagging with relief. That night, Rosa brought me fresh sheets and a real pillow. As she changed Mia's IV bag, she smiled and said softly, "You've been breathing for them for weeks. Now they're starting to breathe for themselves." She was right. For the first time since diagnosis, I felt something new creeping in. Hope. In the quiet that followed, I texted Kate, my best friend, just 3 words. "They're improving slowly." She replied within seconds, "I'm crying. I'll bring celebratory muffins tomorrow." At around 2 a.m., I dozed off reading Where the Wild Things Are Out Loud, a routine the girls had come to expect. Half asleep, I felt a faint tug at my hand. "Mama." It was Zoe's voice, barely above a whisper. I sat up instantly, leaning close. "I'm here, baby. I dreamed we were running. Me and Mia. On a beach. And you were laughing." Tears slid down my cheeks. "That sounds like a beautiful dream. Can we go there? When we're better?" I kissed her forehead.
Yes.
"I promise you. As soon as you're both strong enough, we're going to the beach." She smiled, her eyes fluttering closed again. The next morning, Mia was awake and coloring when I returned from a quick bathroom break. Her tiny voice chirped, "I'm drawing us flying in the sky like superheroes." She held up a picture of 3 stick figures with capes, her, Zoe, and me, soaring above a cartoonish hospital. "I gave you a pink cape," she said proudly, "because you're the strongest mommy." I couldn't speak. I just hugged her, holding that drawing like it was gold. That afternoon, Dr. Bennett returned with her team. "If things continue improving like this," she said, "we may begin preparing to move them to the regular pediatric ward." I looked at Mia and Zoe, pale, yes, but giggling over a shared bag of crackers. A week ago, I was begging the universe not to take them. Now we were planning discharge from ICU. And for the first time in a very long time, I believed we were going to be okay. The girls continued improving over the next 2 days. Their color returned, their blood count stabilized, and their laughter slowly replaced the beeping of machines as the loudest sound in the room. Dr. Bennett approved their transfer to the regular pediatric ward, and though they still needed daily treatment and monitoring, it was a huge step. I finally allowed myself to breathe. But just as the light returned to our little world, a shadow found its way in. While Mia and Zoe napped with their new unicorn blankets, gifts from Nurse Rosa, I checked my phone. There it was, a certified letter had arrived at my apartment from Victoria's attorney. Kate had picked up my mail and texted me a photo. I zoomed in on the opening paragraph. "Until Claire issues a formal written apology to Victoria for neglecting family duties during a time of high social significance, all financial support, including tuition and housing allowance, will be permanently withdrawn." My chest tightened, not with fear, but with a strange calm. The next morning, while sitting in the family lounge sipping hospital coffee, I opened my notes app and began to write. "To my mother. I received your letter. Let me begin with gratitude. Yes, you've helped me financially over the years. I won't pretend I wasn't thankful at times. But now I see the full cost, silence, submission, performance. You asked for a public apology. So here it is on my terms. I'm sorry I ever thought your approval defined my worth. I'm sorry I didn't walk away sooner from a system where love was conditional and children had to earn kindness. I'm sorry I raised my daughters under the shadow of someone who thought their value could be measured in event attendance and proper posture. Mia and Zoe are recovering from cancer, and I stood by them when no one else did. That's the only duty I recognize now. To my children. To myself. I don't need your money. I need peace. And I'm choosing that whether you ever understand or not. Claire. I folded the message into a sealed envelope and mailed it myself that afternoon. 2 days later, I received a text from an unexpected number. Matthew.
Hey.
I just heard about everything. I had no idea the girls were sick. Mom said you were being dramatic again. I'm sorry, Claire. Truly. I stared at the message, surprised. Then a second one followed. I don't know how to fix all this, but I want to start by listening.
Can we talk?
I didn't reply right away. I just turned to Zoe and Mia, who were laughing with Nurse Rosa, each with matching pink headbands and a paper crown. For the first time, I wasn't desperate for family to accept me. I had already found my own version of it, right here in this hospital room. 1 week later, we were discharged. Mia and Zoe were still on oral medications and would return for weekly treatments, but they no longer needed to be in the hospital. As I packed up their books, stuffed toys, and rainbow blankets, Rosa came in one last time and handed them each a handmade bracelet with their names beaded across it. Strong girls, she said with a soft smile. Just like their mama. Dr. Bennett signed the final papers, giving me a warm handshake. You've done beautifully, Claire. Stay strong. And if you ever need anything medical or otherwise, you call me. I choked up, but nodded. Thank you. For everything. Edward was waiting in the parking lot, his car freshly cleaned, 2 booster seats installed in the back. He had brought groceries, new pajamas, and even flower pots for the windows. I thought you could use a little color, he said, placing them on the front steps of my apartment. Not just inside, but outside too. When we walked in, I was stunned. Kate had arranged a surprise welcome home gathering, just a few neighbors, Mia and Zoe's teacher from their old school, and even Brenda, the mom I met in the ICU, was there with her daughter. There were streamers, a banner that read, "You're home, brave girls," and cupcakes with pink and purple frosting. Mia squealed. Zoe gasped. Is this all for us? It's for all 3 of you, Kate whispered as she hugged me. You're not alone, Claire. Not ever again. One of the guests handed me an envelope. Inside was $2,400, collected by local parents, teachers, and friends, enough to help cover immediate expenses and transition the girls into a good public school nearby. I was overwhelmed, speechless. Later that night, after the guests had left and the girls were tucked into their beds, I sat on the small balcony with my dad. The city lights flickered beyond the trees. He handed me a folder. Inside were finalized trust fund documents, naming Mia and Zoe as beneficiaries. There's enough here for their schooling and maybe a little for college one day, Edward said. Dad, I don't know what to say. He smiled, tired but lighter. Don't say anything. Just raise them free of the noise we grew up with. I stared down at the paperwork, heartful. For so long, I believed I had to stay quiet to be safe, to accept control to survive. But this was what real support looked like. No strings. No judgment. Just love. And for the first time, I could see the future again. One that belonged to me. One I could shape, not suffer. 3 weeks after returning home, we celebrated Mia and Zoe's 7th birthday in a small park near our apartment. There were no photographers. No gold-plated decorations. No ice sculptures. Just paper crowns, dinosaur-themed paper plates, homemade chocolate cupcakes, and the people who had stood by us when we had nothing else. Edward brought a huge model of a T-Rex that made the girls scream with joy. Kate baked the cupcakes. Brenda and her daughter came with a basket of handmade gifts and a storybook they'd written together for the twins. Even Matthew showed up, quietly, respectfully. He brought a simple card and 2 unicorn puzzles. He kept his distance at first, unsure if he was welcome. But when Zoe ran up and hugged his legs, giggling, I saw something soften in him. Later, as I sat under a tree watching Mia and Zoe chase butterflies with pink ribbon wands, he came and sat beside me. I meant it, he said. What I texted. I want to do better. I just didn't realize how deep Mom's control ran until I saw what she did to you. I nodded. I know. It's not your fault. But it's your responsibility now to be different. He nodded slowly. I want to be. For the first time, we weren't just siblings bound by blood. We were survivors of the same system, finally speaking the same language. As the sun began to set, Zoe came running toward me, waving a drawing in her hand. Mommy, I made something. It was a stick figure picture. In the center was me with a pink cape, flanked by Mia and Zoe. Above our heads were tiny hearts, and written in crayon at the top, my real family. There was Kate, Edward, Brenda, and her daughter. Even Rosa and Dr. Bennett were drawn in. Matthew stood beside us, slightly crooked, but smiling. I knelt and hugged her tight. It's perfect, I whispered. That night, as I tucked them into bed, Zoe looked up at me sleepily and asked, Are we going to be okay forever now?
I didn't hesitate.
Yes, baby, I whispered. We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be free. We're going to be happy. She smiled, closed her eyes, and murmured one last time, I love you to the moon and all the way back, Mommy. And this time, I whispered back through tears, and I'll never let go, no matter what. If this story moved you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more emotional, powerful stories that stay with you long after they end. Got something to share? Have you ever had to walk away from toxic family to protect your peace? Tell us in the comments. Your voice could inspire someone else. Thanks for watching. And always remember, real love shows up, no strings attached.